Thanks everyone for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I am your host, Lorenzo Melcher. And first off, as I always say, I want to thank all of you for liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading the podcast. Whatever you do to help support is greatly appreciated. So thank you all. If you want to reach out in email, it's thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. We're on every social media, so just search the Nerdball Podcast. You'll find us there. And keep interacting. I appreciate it all. Don't forget about Things I've Learned. Coming out every Tuesday morning, where I give you 5 things I learned. That is slowly becoming my favorite thing. It really has opened my eyes to really think about every day. Like, oh, that's something I could use, and then kind of dive into that. Keep looking for that every Tuesday. I'm also thinking about doing live things I've learned on YouTube, so could interact with people. But we'll see. I don't know. I say a lot of things, and then things don't happen. So for now, keep listening and subscribing to this thing. So I appreciate you for that. I think I've talked about it before, but I do these intros after the podcast. So there's always like little convos I had with the guest after. So there, when she, as my guest was leaving, she did make comments like, "Yeah, Mark said something about a joke about inviting girls over to your parents' basement," and I said, I didn't even talk to girls in high school, so that wasn't happening. And she's like, yeah, that was Mark's play. Mark, you literally invited me over to your parents' basement. So I just wanted to give my buddy Mark a shout out there on his joke that I don't know if it landed. We laughed about it, but I don't know if we laughed about the exact joke. So anyway, my guest was great, Rachel. She was awesome. We talked a lot about her work, which is cool, and then just our lives as we normally do. So again, thank you all for downloading and doing interacting in any way with this podcast. It's been great, and it's only going to be better in 2025. So thanks.
I'm Rachel Moll, and this is the Nerdball Podcast. This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Rachel, thanks so much for coming on my podcast. As in usual fashion, I ask late everyone. I think it was Thursday.
Think so.
I feel like
I actually think on the way here, I was thinking that you had given me notice, because last time I'm pretty sure it was the night before. So this time there was notice. So I was actually commending you for that in my head, like, oh, hey, he's thinking ahead. That's pretty good.
Well, I guess notice is when I always try to do it way ahead of time, or when I say way, at least a week.
Okay.
So I had someone else that I booked for Sunday, and because I gave him either day, and I'm like, oh, and then I thought I had someone booked for Saturday as well. And then they couldn't do it either. And then you just happened to text me talking about the podcast. I'm like, well, you can come on the podcast.
Okay, great.
So it was perfect timing that you were appreciating my podcast and I was appreciating your text. So thank you.
No problem. No problem. I always appreciate the podcast. I told you in the text, like, I really value it because I think it's, I mean, sorry if you have big hopes and dreams for a national podcast, but it's very community based.
Sure.
And I feel like it brings all of us in to feel even more parts of this community, because I didn't grow up in Perrysburg. So hearing everybody's stories of you guys that did or went to high school in Perrysburg kind of makes feel like pull everybody in that they really are a jacket too.
Oh, okay.
Even
yeah.
I wasn't. But
well, so you did send that to me, and sure, I have aspirations to like be bigger or whatever. But then you sent that to me, and I'm like, maybe that is the goal, you know? And I mean, it's. Sure, I can interview all these other people that I want to. And, you know, I interviewed someone, his name is Ian, months ago, maybe even over years ago. And he went to high school with Nate Washington, who used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he said, like, hey, I'm friends with him. Do you want me to, get in contact with him, see if he wants to come on? I said, sure, So there are things like that I want. I'm not going to be like, no, this is community-based, But I understand it, and I do appreciate that, because it is, like, it put it in my head, because you're not the only one that said that. Other people have said that, too. I'm like, well, yeah, this is what it is, and people are telling me this is what it is. So
yeah, when you were talking to oh gosh, I can't remember, Jeff maybe, and saying like, once a jacket, always a jacket.
Oh yeah.
And my high school doesn't exist anymore.
Oh no,
it closed. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just be a jacket too. That's fine. I mean, especially with Luke going to be going into high school, it feels like that next level of that.
Yeah.
Because it is. I mean, it is Yellow Jackets with junior high and junior jackets and even like Perrysburg softball stuff. But I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit different at the high school level than junior high has been great.
Yeah.
It's really involved, like going to Luke plays pep band. So going to some of the junior high basketball games, that student section is, and the pep band is wild, even at the junior high level. But yeah, it's been really, really cool to kind of feel enveloped in, or
yeah. When Mateo went to a game, he hasn't gone, maybe just because it was break, but him and his friends went to a game, and I'm like, when I told Andrea I dropped him off, or Andrea might have dropped him off, I was like, it felt good that he was going to a game. Like he's experiencing what school is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then I picked him up, and of course I know everybody, so I talked to Mr. Bucher, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I go in there? I think it was Andrea Monheim too. I was like, can I just go in there? She goes, there's no seats. I go, I'm just going to go stand next to Janet, who's the trainer. And I went there, I passed Mateo, and it was funny because like most kids are embarrassed by their parents, but I wasn't going to say anything. I saw him, he was having a good time, and he's like real loud, Dad, Dad. Dad. I'm like, and I just waved at him, and like he laughed and smiled, and his friends were all giggly or whatever. And then I went and talked to the trainer, but like it was good to see him there, like experiencing that. I'm sure the same thing with Pep Band, like to see him be a part of it. I'm sure he was playing. He wasn't sad about it. Like he was having fun, right? You know, that's the point of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Luke and Mateo are friends, and they're. I'm pretty sure Luke was up at like 1 a.m. making chicken nuggets or something last night in the middle of playing Fortnite. But
Mateo, I can't say if he was sleeping, but he was definitely not downstairs because we share a wall, so we can hear him move around.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But he definitely was. Yeah, he hasn't got to that point yet.
Yeah. But they're good. Anyways, they're good kids. Like I'm not surprised that he yelled out to you and said hi, because he's a good kid.
I just always like. It makes me feel good. Like, all right, for now, I don't know if it's going to change, and I'm sure it will. It ebbs and flows. For now, my son still likes me enough to say hello in front of all his friends.
Yeah. Success.
Yeah.
We've made it.
Yeah. And he invites me from time to time to play video games with him, so that's fun too. I never ask. I always, because I'm not going to invade his space. I like playing video games with him, and he'll ask me like, hey, do you want to play with me and Grant? Or I think I played with Luke one time too. I'll tell you what though, when I'm on, it's totally different when it's just them. Like there's zero talking hardly when I'm playing.
I always imagine in my head, you know that like clip of Will Ferrell that he's like, oh my God, the door. Like that's all I hear from Luke's room, because he plays at his room, and it's just funny.
Yeah.
Like I make fun of him all the time. I say hi to Grant and Mateo all the time.
Yep.
Like, hey guys.
I always ask who's on, and he tells me, and I say hello. And I think I don't know if it was Christmas Day or maybe New Year's Day or something, and Luke was on, and I just went, Happy New Year or Merry Christmas. And he's like, Merry Christmas. Like, he's like, what do I say? But he did respond, so that was good. Nice. You know, I'm sure as you're working through the same things we are, as teaching our kids to shake hands and respond when people ask you questions. And it might only be one answer, but you got to look at them, and they're asking you a question, respond to them, you know, and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's that part of middle school, junior high stuff that's like some kids are naturally good at it. And some kids, it's a work in progress, and that's okay. Okay. I think that intentionality, though, of like identifying that and saying, hey, like, this is how you really should act as like a polite, kind, involved member of society kind of a thing. Like, it's not about proper manners and carrying a book around on your head, you know what I mean? But like, just that this is how you appear involved in the conversation. It's not disrespectful. Yeah.
And I find the people who are best at getting that out of kids are people who also have kids that same age. Like, because I know, like, well, you do the same thing. Whenever they're on their phone, you say hello to them, you know, and I do that same thing. And we were at Target, and I saw Andy Brungard. He's the head coach at Anthony Wayne. And we stopped. Mateo was there, and he immediately put his hands out after he shook my hand, put his hand out to shake Mateo's hand and asked him a couple questions. And, you know, because he has kids in high school and junior high. So, like, and Mateo answered and talked to him. And then afterward, he goes, like, who was that? You know, like, I had to talk to him. But, like, he responded well. Yeah. And usually parents of kids that same age will do that because it's just, they subconsciously, I'm sure they know, like, hey, you got this. My kid struggles with this too, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But it is you're talking about him screaming in his room. It is so funny to me. Every once in a while, I got to yell upstairs, like, and I'm like, hey, just bring it down a little bit, please.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or we're going to bed. You got
Yeah.
to.
We're going to bed. I'll send him a text like, shh. And then like 2 minutes later, like, keep it down. You know what I mean? Like, he
You
can't.
forget immediately.
Yeah. Or he is so involved he doesn't even like see it. So I just send like rapid fire text to get his attention, but that's okay.
It's very fun to see that part because most of the times their heads are buried in their phones or texting or watching videos, and they're still on their devices, but they're still communicating. And I think that's what's
Correct.
important, right?
Yeah, like I was talking to Mark about that even it's different than what we did as kids. You know, you had to play video games in person and stuff, but it doesn't mean that connection isn't there.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, it's hard to say things in front of people in person. So like in my own mind, I'm thinking beyond it, like maybe it opens up a conversation on the phone, even though they're on FaceTime, but not looking at each other's faces. I'm like, why don't you just use speakerphone? But anyways, like opens up a conversation they might not necessarily have in person. And that just like, you know, it makes it all better.
Yeah. Well, I feel that way. I just had last weekend, I had a I wouldn't say a terrible weekend at work, but there was a bunch of issues and a lot of it was my fault. There's some things I didn't communicate, and my boss was texting me and we were going back and forth, and everything's fine now. Like, it all got figured out. But I told him on Monday when we went in, I was like, I'm glad we didn't have that conversation on the phone or in person because I could tell how mad you were. He goes, I was boiling. I said, I know, but he goes, but it's fine. We figured it out. Everything's good. And now we have these processes to make that thing not happen anymore,
right.
You know, but I did not want to, in that case, I did not want to see him or hear him.
Yeah. That's always so hard when you know you messed up, but taking accountability for it is awesome. You know what I mean? Like some people would never, but yeah, it's okay to mess up. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That's why I even told my assistants, like, here's what happened. It's nobody's fault. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I know I told one of my assistants, we talked about this, that we wanted to do this, but I did not communicate it to the rest of the staff. So that's on me. And, you know, again, we talked about it and everything is fine. But it was one of those, like, I'm glad we're not sitting somewhere right now because I don't like being yelled at. Some people can handle it.
Oh, I would say does anybody like being yelled at? I can't handle it.
It depends on how you grew up too, right? Like if you're like used to that, which isn't a very good childhood, in my opinion, maybe other people might see it differently. And I know as a football coach, like there's some kids who I hear get yelled at by other coaches, and I can see that, well, they don't respond to that. And there's other ones that do respond to that. Like it's just, you know, how it is. And I, as a grown adult, I do not like being yelled at. And my boss knows that. And maybe that's why he was texting me too. Like he understands, like if I call him right now, it's not going to be good for anybody. So this is how we gotta work it out. But I got talked down to one time, and it was my boss's boss, and I blew up at him. And then afterward, he pulled me in his office and go, look, I know I was talking about your work you were doing, but this is more about your supervisor who I'm trying to get rid of. And I know you're upset with me, but this is the grand scheme of things. I go, well, bring me into that conversation in your head next time because I was pissed.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. Like you said, people who are used to getting yelled at, and it's a different way of growing up, or different. It's just a different vibe, and that is not my vibe either. Yeah. So that's okay.
Have you ever messed up at work where and yours might be a little bit different because I don't know how I know a lot of, because my mom's a nurse and my sister works in the hospital, and I just listening to people, there was a lot of things like, we can't admit fault on some things depending on what it is, right? Because you can get in trouble for that. But I'm sure there's things between coworkers where you're like, hey, I'm going to do this or didn't do it or whatever. Like, are there times where you're like, sorry, that sucks?
I mean, just like any job, there's, okay, I'm a NICU nurse, and I've been a NICU nurse for almost 15 years. So I feel like the longer you've been in a role, the easier it is to admit fault, which... it's kind of like a backwards thinking, because sometimes people think like, oh, they've worked here forever, that they can't do anything wrong, right? Sure. Like, but you just see the whole picture a little bit better. And there's some little things like, oops, whatever, that is no harm to anybody. No, like it's whatever. But ultimately, we are very safe.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants the best for the babies that we take care of. So it's very controlled environment that I work in. But mistakes do happen, and there's a process. There's a
Sure.
hospital, ministry, whatever wide process of reporting issues and it's non-penalized.
Oh, got it.
A lot of stuff like medication errors and safety issues and stuff like that, because it has to be is it penalized? Penalized.
I think people say both.
I don't know. Anyways, you don't get in trouble
Mm-hmm.
because then people don't report things, and then they can't find out like a common thread of issues.
Okay.
So like the same thing might be happening over and over. And is it ultimately the nurse's fault? Sure, yes or no. But
Yeah.
sometimes there's other things that are lined up, like you said at your job, that there's a better system that can be set up so that this doesn't happen again. So that's kind of the same thing. It's a huge company, and it's
Yeah.
very formal. And there are things people get in trouble for.
Oh, yeah.
But on the most part, day-to-day issues or things that go wrong, we all report this into the system, and then it goes to the appropriate powers that be, and then
Decisions
things
are
get
made.
fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the goal, is that things get fixed. Sometimes it's either a really niche issue that isn't, or sometimes it's we keep submitting requests to have something changed or fixed, and it takes a long time.
Yeah.
So, but usually things that are a huge safety issue get addressed right away.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right away.
Yeah.
So
I
that's okay.
I listened to a podcast. This was years ago, and it was about a particular hospital. I don't remember where, but they talked about how when they make mistakes that affect patients' health or their lives or something, that they started apologizing for them. And what they found out was that there was less lawsuits because of that. Because they found out most people just want to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
That's huge.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's this whole thing that if you say you're sorry, you're admitting fault. Sometimes you can, I don't want to say manipulate the apology, but sometimes even just saying, I'm sorry this happened to you, or I'm sorry this happened to your family member, that sometimes even that goes a long way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a risk, because why would you apologize for saying I'm sorry when, because then it does. The thought is that it opens up for a lawsuit, but people just want to be acknowledged and seen and acknowledge. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah, no, this was wrong. This got messed up.
Yeah.
So.
And I think just in every people's, and everyday life, people like to hear that when someone messes up, to take ownership. Or the worst thing people do is like, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's like, no, you're not saying sorry at all. Like, you're just
you don't want you to be upset.
Yeah, you feel better because you said that. But yeah, I thought that was because of how the nature of suing people. I thought that was a cool thing to hear. Like, yeah, this is what we're doing, and it's working. And sure, there's still lawsuits, but this is what's happening.
Yeah. I wonder if they have like real statistical like evidence and stuff. I'm gonna look it up, because I want to know like because everything is evidence based in healthcare. And so, but I think that's awesome, because mistakes happen. We're human. Things happen. But I'm gonna knock on wood that I don't ever in the future want to be part of a big, huge, serious safety event. Nobody does, but I've had a great career so far, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah. That I'm sure we talked about it in the first podcast, but I forget everything. But is it hard to do that job?
I don't know that we talked about, because we talked a lot about organizing stuff.
Okay. All right.
And decluttering and organizing. I don't think we talked about nursing stuff. I love my job. Like,
so I would imagine all the people in there like to do it.
Yes.
It just seems difficult obviously at times.
It can be. Yeah. The majority of our patients all get bigger and better and go home and thrive. And that ultimately is kind of the driving point, because I don't know that I could work in a unit that's not the case, because there are neonatal units that exist that's not the case, that it's just different. We have a lot of like premature babies and term babies and respiratory issues, and sometimes they need surgery, and sometimes there's lots of different kinds of babies that come through our unit. But for the most part, depending on how long it takes, differs. Some
Yeah.
are there for months and some are there for days. They get bigger and they get better. They thrive. They go home happy and healthy. But the ones that are the like you remember their name, you remember their parents' names, you remember what bed space they were in, those ones stick with you when tragedy happens. But it is very far and fewer in between. But then sometimes like terrible things happen with families, and then you become friends with them, or whatever ends up happening, and later down the road different things happen in their family life and they're thriving, and that's great too, to know that like families can move on from like tragic events that happen. So I'm rather the optimist and the silver lining kind of person, but
I think if you're working in NICU, you have to be. Like,
I mean, there's still a lot of dark humor. Any nurse, I'm sure
sure
your
there
mom.
is.
I'm sure your mom has dropped a, something here and there. But like, no, I just love it so much that I don't ever want to work anywhere else. I don't. Like, I always say they'd have to drag me away kicking and screaming to like go work somewhere else.
So I'm assuming when you were in nursing school, you shadowed, I guess, like a bunch of different departments.
Yeah, you kind of you have like clinicals through different
that's
different
a better
areas.
term than shadowing.
Shadowing. Shadowing's usually like for high school students.
I couldn't do it, but
It's okay. But yeah, we do the different rotations or clinicals through different groups of area. And like NICU was involved, like it wasn't with pediatrics unit, like our class, it was with like labor and delivery and OB stuff. Are you going to ask how I got interested in it?
So no, that's exactly what I was asking. I'm assuming because based on when you did your clinicals, like something pulled you, you're like, oh man, this is it. And maybe it wasn't then, but something very similar. You're like, yeah, this is where I want to be.
So I actually thought I wanted to do pediatrics. So NICU is only like newborn, born in the hospital and then transferred. Like we don't take patients, even if they're 2 days old that have gone home, those babies go to pediatrics. So that's how our hospital is set up. But so I thought I wanted to do pediatrics. In high school, I shadowed at my own doctor's office. I have type 1 diabetes. And so I thought I wanted to be a diabetes educator. But I shadowed at that doctor's office and decided I did not want to work in an office. It was not the pace.
Which, by the way, is exactly what shadowing is for.
Yeah.
To figure out if this is what, to solidify it, or to be like, nope, this is not what I want.
I loved the people. My family has known the people in that office for a very long time, which sometimes felt more like a social visit, but great group of providers and doctors, and nothing on them, but it was just kind of funny because like they knew me when I was like in a car seat or something, so I did that shadow. I didn't like it. So then I'm like, I still want to go into nursing. I'll work maybe on a pediatrics floor, like inpatient. That clinical rolled around and I was so invested, really tried, and just, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But clinicals as a nursing student are so different than like when you're actually a nurse working on the floor. So I kind of was like, maybe it's just because I'm a student and
Oh, okay.
And then I failed out of college.
Hey, join the club.
Right?
High five.
Woo! I did get back in.
Yeah.
I went to Mercy in Toledo, and the program, I don't even know what it is now, but if you had 2 class failures, which a failure is a C.
Okay.
So
I
two
was
grades,
way worse than that.
2 grades below 80
Okay.
A C is like a 7.
Yeah.
I can tell you with a surety that it is a 79.4. They will not round a 79.4 up.
Okay.
That's exact. Anyways, it happens. So got kicked out of the program. My whole life was over. It was a time.
Did you think this? I'm not doing it again, or did you like right away? You had your mindset like, well, eventually I'll go back.
No, I wanted to go back. Like I instantly applied at like Owens and Tara, and at the time, it was really hard to get into a nursing program.
Oh, okay.
And the way that nursing classes are set up is each school is so different that nothing transfers.
Of course.
So I was in the fall semester of my like 4th year, like my senior year.
Yeah.
Like I was like 5 months from graduating, and I was going to have to start all over. So, and I was
Wait,
in a
I want to pause because you're like, it was a time. What happened? What happened after you?
it was just awful.
Yeah.
Like Mark and I were engaged at the time. I'm pretty sure I told him that he should just go.
No.
Like I was like, I'm a big failure. It was bad.
And I know Mark. I'm sure he was very supportive.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Man.
It was bad. Like I was really depressed and really upset, and because I was in a bachelor's program, a 4-year program, 5 months from graduating. Like I think. Yeah, because this was December. I was supposed to graduate in May. And to start all over, I hate school. I don't know. Do you ever have those moments where like you feel like everything is just crashing down in front? Like that was it.
Yeah.
Everything was just shit.
Yeah.
But I had a really great friend who was super supportive, who was in school with me. And she was like, nope. I was in Fostoria when I found out, because I think I was at Mark's parents' house in Fostoria. And she's like, you're going to drive back up here. We're going to go in. We're going to talk to the teacher. We're going to sit down. We're going to go over your exam. So that's ended up how I found out that I had a 79.4 that they did not round up. But it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm the one who took the test. Yeah. I just ended up like bombing the final, but it ended up being 1 point, not even one question. Like if I had gotten one more point in the entire class on a quiz, on any test, on anything.
Oh my gosh.
Awful. So I don't know if that makes it better, where it's like to know that you're that close, but just not. Anyways. So,
yeah, that is tough, because you're like, man, I feel like, I don't know. You're right. Because I feel like my first thought was like, man, that feels worse, because any of these things along the way, if you would have done 1% better, or not even, it would have been fine.
Yeah. So I had missed a quiz because I had a low blood sugar one morning. So I got a 0 on that quiz. So, and ended up being okay. Well, ish. I appealed the getting kicked out of the program.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I had a previous like class failure again, because it's 80%.
Yeah.
Not whatever. Nursing school is hard.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Hard. Worth it. I have said though, I don't. If for some reason they said that my nursing license was like invalid,
like you had to go back to school,
I don't know that I would go back. I really am not a school person. I
Me
struggled.
too.
I wish, especially with when this happened, I wish I would have just gone for a 2-year degree instead of a 4. I think.
What's the difference? Oh.
Both can get you an RN.
I was to say, is one just an LPN, or do you have
no
RN?
RN?
Okay.
You can do a 2-year associate's degree and take boards and become an RN.
Okay.
There was kind of a big push. I graduated in 2004, so same time as you. But there was a big push for bachelor's degrees at the time. Like go to college, go to college, get a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And there was kind of this shift in nursing that kind of said the same thing, like, oh, places are only going to hire you if you have a bachelor's degree. Like
I even think
I feel like for a short time Mercy even said that, like, in year and then stuff changes, and that's not the case anymore. So it's fine.
Well, yeah, because they need nurses everywhere, everybody. So So what school was this that you went to get your bachelor's?
Mercy College.
Okay.
Yeah. Went right out of high school. And so, but, hindsight, you
Yeah.
learn,
So
live and learn. So I did appeal and I
Yeah.
did get back in. But the class that I failed was an 8-week class that was only offered in the fall.
Oh yeah.
So I had to wait an entire, what's 52 minus 8? Oh, God.
44.
40, thank you.
Yeah.
44 weeks to retake this 8-week class. And I kid you not, I sat down for syllabus day. I prepped. It was the same teachers. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to be negative.
Yeah.
I had my old notebook just to whatever. I sat down for syllabus day. And they're going through, and I swear that teacher looked right at me when she said that you can drop your lowest quiz score. And I'm like, because if I could have dropped my lowest quiz score, I would have passed.
Wait a minute.
So it was like, it took everything to not just get up and go. Just get up. I was like, oh, okay. I'm so glad for future classes of this, people who are taking this class. But I was just like, okay, great.
Just put it in your brain they changed the policy.
They changed it because I failed out. Yeah.
It's
great.
not called the Rachel rule.
Oh my God. Don't feel like me. No. So, I mean, I think I'm a very capable nurse. Like I said, I've been.
Wait, what was your grade in that class then?
Oh, I got a high A.
Did you get
a high A?
I figured.
Yeah, but so it doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm still very pained by this situation. I have a lot of emotion about it, and the ultimate thing too is loop it back around here. This is how I ended up in the NICU because my friend that went with me when, basically carried me into the dang building to go talk to the teacher about it. I don't know how she knew. She knew she wanted to be in NICU. She's actually a neonatal nurse practitioner now. And she loved it. And it was radiating kind of a thing.
Okay.
So 5th year of college.
Yeah.
We do a practicum where you go and you do, I don't even know, 120 hours, a good 10 shifts with a nurse, not with a clinical instructor. So you kind of work one-on-one with somebody, and it came time to pick where you wanted to go. And I was like, let me just try NICU, because if peds wasn't what I thought it would be, this is a great experience because in school you only got a 4-hour, we did shadow in NICU. We did a 4-hour shadow. You weren't allowed to touch anything.
Yeah.
It was just
You're there.
4 hours.
You're a fly on the
That's
wall.
it. Yeah.
You're a shadow.
Yeah. So we really don't learn anything about NICU other than the fact that it exists. So I ended up doing my practicum hours, my long 10 shifts or whatever in the NICU, and that was it. Loved it. The nurse I was with was awesome, and they didn't have any jobs when I graduated. I was already working in the hospital on an adult floor, so I took a job there. But I'd see this nurse in the cafeteria every once in a while, and she was like, "They're going to post jobs.
Oh, nice.
They're going to post jobs." And it was right after we're union, and you couldn't bid on another job until you had been in your current one for so many months.
Or a probationary period.
Yeah. And it was right after that they got posted, and I just happened to get it.
Yeah.
It was great. I was so happy. I did not want to work with adults anymore. And I had only done it for 9 months or what. It was a very short time.
Sure.
By the time I left, but yeah. So
have you been at the same place?
Yeah.
The whole time too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead.
Which is great. I don't mind. I worked night shift full time, and then I went to day shift full time. I had a charge nurse role where we did transports from different hospitals to and from, not very frequently.
Yeah.
And then I stepped out of that charge role to just be a staff nurse and take care of patients because our charge nurse doesn't always have patients. It's kind of 50-50. And then about 2 years ago I went part-time, and now I live my princess life where I work one day at a time, and sometimes full-time's 3 12-hour shifts a week.
Okay.
Part-time is 2 12-hour shifts a week. So generally I work like one day at a time.
Yeah.
Unless it's my weekend, and then I work Saturday, Sunday. But it's very flexible being part-time. Highly recommend. It's great. Thanks, Mark.
Part-time work, yeah. Yeah, because that is a decision you're going to make by yourself, right? That's to be like full-time to part-time.
Yeah.
Like this is a family thing that we got to figure out, and if this is something we could do, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it had been a kind of an ongoing conversation, like starting way back when paying for daycare for kids, and it's like, this is so much money for daycare, but like, does it make more sense to work less, or you know what I mean, that whole thing. And so we kind of had this bar in our heads of like, well, maybe when we get here, I always said like, Mark, this is the number you slide across the table, which that's not the type of environment he works in at all. His job is great.
Yeah.
But for me to go part-time, and so it just kind of ended up all lining up. And
I've asked Andrea, Andrea, how much money do you have to make in order for me to not be working? And she always says, how much money do you make now? I go, and I tell her, she goes, that much more. I was like, that's no fair, because sometimes I get raises. It keeps raising up.
Yeah. We, Mark got an associate degree, and he has had to really work his way up. He has worked hard to get where he's at, and it's kind of been nice because with school being such a situation that it was for me, but the nice thing with nursing is it is a really well-paying job, right? So, like, you do make more the more longer you've been there, but, like, it starts off really pretty decent. So it's kind of been nice for, like, Mark and I to kind of switch places.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But,
yeah. I don't think that would happen with me and Andrea, but...
hey, it could happen.
I always... Well, that's the, to go back to the beginning of the podcast, that's what I like about, like, if this thing ever takes off.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, Andrea, if you don't want to work because of X, Y, and Z, cool. Now, that's my dream for her. Now, she would probably say, no, I still want to work. Like, I like working, or maybe it's something else. Or she always fantasizes about, like, owning a, it's almost like she just wants to own a business.
That sounds terrible.
She talks about not as much anymore, but she used to talk about owning like a what do you call it? Like just like a banquet hall. So like people rent it out for things. Like she talked about that. Those all those hotels over on 795. There used to be a motorcycle dealership there, an Indian motorcycle dealership, and then it went out of business years ago. So that building was just vacant for a long time. And her mom, her sister, and herself would talk about, because all those hotels are there, that'd be a great place for a hall, because you have the hotels right there, and then people can have their weddings or their anniversary or whatever, But they talk about that a lot. But I want, because she works hard, and I just know, just talking about, like, she really loves her job and she likes her team and all that stuff. But that's what I want for her. I don't know if she wants it, but
yeah, and, every job's a little different on what that looks like. Like, not every job can be a part-time job, especially when you're in a leadership kind of position. Yeah. So it is fun to have that conversation of, like, if I didn't have this job, what job would I have? Right. So I think that's cool to have that. Like, that would be a great spot, because it is right next to the hotels and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's Rossford, right?
I don't know where the line is. I think so, because we're in Perrysburg Township, and it's just right across the highway. I would imagine they would use the highway as a line for.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like real weird on Route 20 how it's like Walmart is Perrysburg, but then Meijer is Rossford. Yeah. Like I know that route. Yeah, that line is real weird over there.
Do you mentioned it? Did you ever think about, like, if I'm not a nurse anymore, what would I do? Or is it the decluttering?
I don't want to run a business.
Oh, okay.
Is ultimately what that ended up boiling down to. So my friend Megan's doing it. My friend Megan. So I just get to, like, show up and be her happy helper sometimes. And it's great. I'm like, I don't have to do any of the planning. I just get to do all the work. I don't know. We've done a ton of work to our house. I say we. I mean Mark.
You have plans and he fulfills them.
Yes, mostly.
You have orders, and here's the
I do like, okay, so we always say that, I think we talked about this last podcast, he's like maintenance, but I'm environmental services, right? So like
Yeah.
he does like the building or whatever, but I can do like some demo and then I clean it and paint it and make it look pretty. I don't know. But that seems too trivial for it. We have both put blood, sweat, and tears into our house. It's fine.
Yeah.
Most of my blood is from running into things like that I shouldn't have. But so we had kind of talked about like the whole house flipping thing.
Yeah.
And involving his brother and my sister-in-law because they have some sales and some home buying, selling experience that we don't have. Like the four of us could make a really good team to do that, but that takes some like upfront capital to do. And that's kind of, I mean, that it's a big risk and all that stuff. So,
Well, that and you're either working two jobs then, or you're saying goodbye to your job that is providing and hoping this other thing pans out. You know, so that's there's you have children, so
yeah, you know, that whole thing. But I really don't want to do anything else. But I have little like side jobs that I would love to do. I follow a lot of like cleaners and just declutterers and organizers and stuff. There's some people that do like free cleanings for people in need.
Oh yeah,
I would love to do that, but I don't want to do that as a job.
Yeah.
I just would love to show up with a basket full of cleaning supplies and do random stuff at somebody's house.
well the job in that aspect, because I follow TikTokers who mow lawns for free, but the
Yeah.
job there then is video editing.
Yeah.
You know, it's talking voiceover work, like it's all that's the job, because that's how they get to do those things for free, is because they make videos and stuff where they get paid to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing when people videotape themselves giving things to the homeless, or like people get mad in the videos like, why are you videotaping? And then everyone's like, well, where do you think he gets the money from? He or
Right.
she gets the money from to do this.
Yeah.
It's because of these videos. And
Yeah, the support all comes from the internet powers that be that
From-
funnel the money in from advertising and
from the
stuff.
community, right? The community
Yeah.
they make,
Yeah.
right? And so that in that case, like if you didn't want to do that, then at some point you're losing money somewhere. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So it can't go on forever.
Right.
But it is one of those things where like that it is fun to do, or you help out your neighbor, or like my neighbor, they're him and his wife they're old, and sometimes they don't have their kids around, so we'll help them do something every once in a
Yeah.
while, or he'll come over and knock on the door and be like, hey, can you come help me do this thing or whatever. So
That's great.
Yeah.
So I like to read a lot of historical fiction. And so you kind of I love books because you get pulled into this world, right? So like communities were so different 100, 200
Sure,
years ago,
yeah.
right? But they had to be. So I'm like, how great would it be to be in this community where everybody shares what they have and da-da-da. It sounds very commune cult like nowadays. But then you look at the world in civilization, development, everything has evolved. Like people who are able to farm and grow their own food and do everything in their own little community didn't work outside the home. So that means that hospitals didn't exist,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that wouldn't be great either. So like the modern way of trying to build a community is so different than it used to be. You know, it used to be everybody came together because they kind of had to. Like
Yeah.
you had to build your own house. You had to dig your own well and your own outhouse and all, you know what I mean? All these
Yeah.
things. And so your neighbors helped each other because they knew they were going to need the help too. So now everything is so like individualized, right? Like you can just call somebody to fix it or da-da-da, and
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need to ask your neighbor to help. But having that community is so important that, but it's just different,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, I had to borrow a ladder from my neighbor's neighbor, who I waved to and say hello, and so I talked to him for a little bit. He was like, and he was it just happened to be coming down the street, and I stopped him and go, "Hey, Mike, can I borrow your extension ladder?" Larry told me he had an extension ladder. He goes, "Oh yeah," like it's one of those things I'm learning. Older people like to offer help because it stops after a while, right? Like especially if your kids aren't around anymore. Like for me, I ask my parents for things sometimes, and Andrea asks her parents for things, you know, for help. For do you have this around or whatever? But like he was very excited to like let me borrow his ladder, and so Mateo and I went over there, and he's like, I got to move the car, and he pulled out this Jaguar, like early 2000s Jaguar, real nice.
Yeah.
Interior was white, And I'm like, man, this is a real nice car. And we were talking about it. And, you know, so it was nice to go over there and like chit chat with him a little bit and talk to him. And, you know, and I'm sure he liked it, you know, I
Right.
liked it.
Yeah. Because then one thing kind of leads to another, and then it leads
Mm-hmm.
to another, and then you have a conversation, and then you find out you have a combined interest of
Yeah.
some form or whatever. I don't know. Like, internet's great. Social media is great. I'm not like a big in your face kind of a person. So I don't really do New Year's resolutions, but my kind of theme, I feel like, for this year is just about like trying to build more community, whatever that looks like. But I'm not saying like, I'm not going to make a post and be like, who wants to join my club? It's more of a like just having more conversations with people.
Yeah.
Just to find those interests that you might not know that you share kind of
Yeah.
a thing. And then, oh, I'm really good at this. I like to clean on the side or da da da. And somebody else, I like to make quilts. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, well, I don't want to make a quilt, but if I ever need one, it's good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we can, you know,
Yeah.
it's just,
Finding out who does what.
yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of probably part of I know you've talked about like your goal for this podcast is just to talk to people and hear what they're interested in and all that stuff. But like the idea that building community, it's like things like boosters are great. Things like big events are great. Like there's so many organized events all the time, right? You can go to organized events all the times, but it's more about like just having conversations with people and opening up. I am a sit on the couch with my dog kind of a person.
Sorry, that's my wife. That's Andrea too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Which is fine. Yeah.
It's okay.
Andrea and I are complete opposites.
Mark and I are too. So
Well, there's a reason we coach and you guys sit and
yes.
and cheer, right? Cheer
well,
girls on.
I will say, so I coached volleyball in the fall for the
Oh, you did?
the Volley Jackets. Loved it.
Oh,
I did.
nice.
I was very.
Were you assistant coach?
We
Or
were
like-
kind of
Got
co-coaches.
it. Okay.
I don't think one of us either. We actually, so it's at HPI, and there was like 14 teams of girls playing volleyball. Anyways, the other team that was practicing at the same time of us, we just combined all together.
Okay.
One of their coaches knew what she was doing. I don't know. I think she might have played in college. She definitely played like well in high school. I played volleyball in high school too. Loved it, but she knew what she was doing as far as like drills and all that stuff. So we kind of let her lead, and then we would split up and come together and combined resources, and it was great.
Yeah.
But it was really fun.
Yeah.
I'm not. That's my first like go at coaching.
Yeah.
Again, not something I was a little nervous about because you don't want to mess up, right?
Was it out of like necessity they needed someone, or did you
No.
like, you know what, I want to do this?
I said I want to do it
Good.
because I love volleyball. Like I said, I played in high school and loved it. Abby really hadn't had any exposure to it. She had done a couple of like little clinics,
Yeah.
but I just,
What was your favorite part about coaching?
they were so bad the first week.
Yeah.
So bad. And then they ended up being really, they learned and grew so much. So much.
That's what's so nice about coaching younger kids is how they progress in such little time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the thing I like about that is that, and then, you know, using like, oh, I just coached these six-year-olds on how to swing a bat, and then, you know, a month later, or sometimes the same day, depending on the seasons, now I'm coaching high school kids, and I'm correcting someone because their foot was at a 80-degree angle and it should have been at a 90 degree. You know what I mean? Like the little things that change as you get older, but it's all progression, and to see that, it's really cool.
Yeah. And so this was 5th and 6th graders. And so some of them had done Volley Jackets the year before. It was a great program. But sometimes it was their first touching of a volleyball ever. So like I said, I played in junior high and high school. And so like I looked up a whole bunch of stuff about like beginner stuff, because the stuff that I remember last doing, even if it was 20 years ago,
That's right.
it was for you too.
Yeah. I like the way you said it. Well, you almost didn't say it. But
Yeah, 20 years ago. But like obviously you can't
do that.
You can't do that, right? You have to adapt and kind of change it. So it was very much just like we worked a lot on passing. A lot on bumping the ball.
When you find like you said they were terrible, you find out too right away. Like, all right, we're gonna do this drill, and then you start doing. You're like, all right, we got to go back like 3 steps.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
But that makes you you're a good coach because of that. Some coaches would stick to that drill, like you guys are messing up, or you got to be doing this better. You got to be, and then but to recognize that. Same thing in softball. Like, all right, we're playing catch. Oh, they can't even do that right now. All right,
Yeah.
let's
Balls
change that.
going all over the outfield,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're spending more time chasing the ball than they are like actually throwing and catching it.
Yeah.
That's always so hard to watch. But then they get there.
Yeah.
But not without going back and spending the time and doing it. The nice thing is because I knew that it was most of these girls' first experience in volleyball. Some had other experience. The expectations were really low.
Okay.
So that kind of helps. I almost think it would be harder to be like a junior high coach where you should know some of this by now, especially in Perrysburg where there's
a really good volleyball program.
It's like, I mean, okay, so 14 teams of 5th and 6th graders. So even if you divide that by grade, so 7 teams in each grade to go down to 1 team in 7th grade, like there's a lot of girls. But I know it kind of pushes kids into some different sports, like cross country. They might not have been interested in, so it's fine. But yeah, in middle school, like junior high, I feel like it would be hard to coach. Everything about junior high is hard. But like, because they should have some skill set, but they're obviously not high schoolers or, obviously beyond.
Yeah.
So finding that middle ground of pushing, but still developing. I mean, I guess it's kind of like 12U softball is the same thing, right? Like, no, you guys should know how to play catch by now. Like there's things that you should have mastered this by now if you're going to keep playing. But, I don't know that I will. I probably will coach Volley Jackets again next fall. And Abby's in 6th grade. She really enjoyed having me as a coach. She came up and was very happy to see me every day and every week at practice, which was great. And I really enjoyed talking to like all the girls and kind of that same like feeling like, okay, I'm part of the school system. Now, because softball feels a little bit separate.
Yeah, because it's not a
school sport.
You're never at a school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still is a huge community of people, and I love it, and it's great. But it is a little bit different. So get to meet whole new people, and co-coach and I found out we kind of had some like friends not from Perrysburg kind of in common and stuff like that. I rolled my ankle real bad. She's an athletic trainer. So
no, I don't mean to laugh at you.
No, it was really bad.
I was trying to envision like when it happened, like you're just on the side and like, good job, and you like jumped up, you're like, oh no.
It was during warm-ups, and I like jumped up to catch a ball that somebody had passed too far, and somehow
jumped. Like, what's your vert? It jumped up how high?
I mean, I'm 5'3", so like a junior high volleyball net is perfect. I did hit in high school, but like. I could jump higher. Anyways, I was in the air.
Okay, all right.
And came down on a coach from the other team and a ball somehow. I don't know. It was very confusing. I think the other coach had like come under the net. I was up. But anyways, rolled my ankle really bad. And which I did in high school all the time.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, oh God, help me. Melissa, help me. Abby had some like back stuff going on from softball. She gave us some great tips from that. That was really nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always liked, you talked about softball, and I always liked, I'm sure the same thing in volleyball, where the girls did something, and I would talk to the other coaches like, all right, that's softball. Yes, that's a softball play.
Yes.
That's what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Same thing, I'm sure you're like, all right, they said it, someone hit it, and we scored. Yes, good.
I don't know if we ever had a set and a hit. I know we had a set and like a tip.
Okay, all right.
And we had a really tall girl that I was like, just get up there and hit it. Get up. And she had played before, and she was kind of timid. I feel like as a short girl, I don't understand this.
I can tell you why.
The timid tall girls.
I can tell you why. because their whole life they've been tall and they want to be small.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to stand out. So that's
Yeah.
how it is. And
Yeah.
Andrea was like that. Andrea
Yeah.
was always tall. She was always center middle in every picture. They just, and as a tall guy, I felt that way sometimes. It's not as much of a guy thing as it is for a woman. But yeah, you don't want to be noticed, especially when you're 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, that's
you know,
fair.
like,
That's totally fair.
but I can see from someone who's always been short, you're like, I would love it.
I would just want to reach the stuff on the top aisle at the grocery store, and I can't. I'm either asking somebody or climbing up to like on the bottom rack. But so maybe someday we'll run into each other at the grocery store, and you can save me.
I can follow you around.
Well, actually, I did see Andrea at Aldi a couple weeks ago, and I was like,
"Oh, she did tell me that."
I was like, "Why are you grocery shopping? That's Lorenzo's job." She's like,
"Yeah, she did."
She was fine about it, but
necessity.
It was, yeah. She's like, "It just worked out." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
I mean, we talked about. I love it.
Yeah,
it's so much fun. I don't know what it is. I think it's whenever I go with the kids, they'll come home like, "Mom, Lillian knew does it. Mom, Dad saw 3 people he knew." Like she always gives a report.
We play that game too. Like, how many people are we going to see that we know? Working in a hospital, I know I work with. I mean, there's thousands of people, right, that work at the hospital, former patients, friends, all this stuff, and then even so, Mark and I grew up in Fostoria, and people come up from like that area to come shopping at Costco or Meijer and all that stuff up here. So sometimes I'll see people I haven't seen in 20 years or 10, all that stuff. So,
how do you operate when you don't remember their name?
Hey, I don't know. I don't acknowledge the fact that I can't remember their name. Sometimes if the kids are with me, it's easier because I can say, "This is my daughter Abby," or you know what I mean. And
Andrea does it for me. She'll go like, I'll go.
Oh, good for her.
I don't know this person, and she goes back to her. She goes, "Hey, I'm Andrea," and then they say the name. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I knew."
And a lot of times it's like facial recognition, especially people that I have seen at the hospital, or I worked at a bar before that. I worked at Buffalo Wild Wings in Toledo. It was like not a real. It was a real Buffalo Wild Wings.
I was going to say, not a real Buffalo.
It was a real Buffalo Wild Wings, but it was in like an old
BW2. What
it was like an old dive bar. You know how like all the buildings look the same? They're brand new buildings.
Oh yeah.
So this was not a standalone. It was a standalone building, but it was like an old bar that Beat Ups was in.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of regulars and a lot of people that we saw all the time there, on a daily or weekly basis. And then sometimes I'd see somebody out and about, and I'm like, how do I know that person? And it would.
Just from
I'm like, that's probably from the bar. I don't know. Not as me as a customer, as a server, but yeah.
Have you ever had a baby named after you?
My niece.
Yeah.
Her name is Erin. My middle name is Erin.
Okay.
But not like a.
I just didn't know, like, because sometimes people will do that, or like, you'd be. Maybe you're not surprised, but I feel like there's more people who don't know what they're going to name their child until like after they're born.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah,
it's wild to me. Like just because we're such planners, like we had to have all these things all lined up. Give me a monogram blankets already.
We've had babies whose names have changed.
Yeah,
like they tried it out for a couple of days or whatever, and they're like, no.
Oh really? Then how does that? Because I feel like the birth certificate has to be. Is that something pretty quick, or can they?
Yeah, usually they say before like mom leaves the hospital.
Okay,
so. Couple of days can sometimes be in that window.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the birth certificate would need change. But I think I don't know that we've had one with the birth certificate, but it's been like, try this out for a couple of days. And then they're like, no, it's not. That's not it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We always talk about that because we had another name for Mateo. It was, I think one was Mason. And then I think there was another one. But we look at it like, man, I'm sure the same for your kids. Like, there's no way you could have been named anything else than what you're named right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we had like a backup name. Kind of like between two names, whatever. This wasn't a backup or a secondary name for Luke, but sometimes I look at him and think he could have been a Max.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But that was also the name of our dog, like growing up. But like Max the dog is a different person, a different entity than like Max
the boy
kid.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's funny because you can't, sometimes people's names are so ingrained into who they are that you can't, saying a different name is like, that's not it.
Yeah.
You know, that's not it.
Does most parents, if not all, think when they're before they have a baby, like, all right, here's our kid's name. What are some nicknames that other kids will say that we don't like? And like, because I know we process that a little bit. Like we go through this name, like, that someone's gonna call him this, and it's gonna be terrible, and so let's do this name or whatever. Right?
I think I was the only one that called her Abigail.
Yeah.
From the start, I called her Abigail for months, and I don't think anybody else did. I think they all called her Abby. It didn't bother me.
Sure.
But then now she's just Abby.
I call her Abby Dabby all the time, and she gives me her Abby face, and I don't care because that's Abby's face.
Yep.
And the way I do is, if she's that way to me, then I feel, and this is just me feeling, and don't tell me otherwise, that she likes me.
Yeah.
If this is how she treats me.
Yeah.
Because it is not poorly. Like,
No.
she doesn't treat anybody poorly. She doesn't treat me poorly. She makes fun of me just like the other girls make fun of me. That I think that's because they're comfortable and they're going to do that. But I always like making her make that face. And another Abby thing I remember too is walking into, I couldn't remember what it was. It was an early morning thing. I don't know if it was maybe it was a softball clinic, and Becky was there.
Yeah.
And Becky was like, Abby, and do all this stuff, and Abby was just like,
yeah, that was so.
That was so funny.
Becky worked at Frank, and so every morning she would be out the doors, and Abby would like walk across the street. We live in that neighborhood right by Frank, and so we would just like drive up to the crosswalk and like let the kids walk. So I could see it half the time happening. I was just like,
it was so
but
funny.
I'm not a morning person either, so like I get it. But
I think calling Abby a morning person is being very generous. She's not an anything person. We'll have her practice at 6. And like, Abby, did you just wake up? What's happening here? Come on.
yeah, she's just, I don't know. I say she's like, I want to be like her when I grow up sometimes. She is so sure of herself, which is great. It's what you want in a kid.
100%.
Want in a kid.
Yes.
I want her to say when she doesn't like things. I want her to say when she does like things. And obviously kids are different at home.
Yeah.
I do think she is growing out of a little bit of the just non-enthusiasm. I took her and 4 friends to the movies the first day of winter break.
Oh.
That was an experience.
Yeah.
5 11-year-old girls.
Yeah.
And then of course there was a friend in the movie theater too. So then there was 6-ish.
What movie did you guys see?
We saw Mufasa.
Oh, okay.
Which was, I really liked it. The girls were probably split. I don't think it wasn't like a get up and dance and have a great time at the movie theater kind of movie. It was more of a storyline, but it was just something to do. It was on Abby's bucket list for the winter break to like, it started out as one friend. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe we can take a friend with us. And then it was suddenly 4 friends. And I'm like, okay, we're doing this. I'll go pick everybody up in the minivan and let's go.
Have you ever done a birthday party at the movie theater?
Not for my own kid. I say my kids have gone to them.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a lot of work because there's a lot of kids, but the way they do it is pretty cool. They give you that little room. They give you all these little popcorn things you can take to watch the movie. It's a cool thing, but it is a lot of work. As they get older, it's less, obviously, and then at some point you're like, Mom, can you drop me off at the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I sat like a row or 2 away, and I was in the same row, and then they moved, and I'm like, whatever, it's empty theater, it's fine, go ahead.
Oh yeah, because everyone has assigned seats now.
Yeah, I shushed them a couple of times, but there really wasn't that many people in the theater. I think if there would have been more, they would have been shushed by other people, probably. But it's fine. They're 11. Have a great time, girls. It's fine.
Well, Abby, like I said, I've coached her a couple times, and she is, like I said, I like her personality. Like you said, you want to be her when you're older. Like she is. A normal 11-year-old girl, and having coached so many different personalities, like it's fun to see all those different things. And Kendall Blessing's the same way. Like she's mean sometimes, and but that's her personality, and she's mean to me. She's not mean to the other girls, right? She's mean because it's fun to her. Like I always tell a story. It makes me crack up when we did an overnight tournament, and we came out of the hotel. And I was getting breakfast, and I was wearing my glasses.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, yes, you were.
But tell the story for the people.
She looked at me. She goes, "Ugh, you wear glasses?" I go, "You have glasses on." I couldn't believe it.
Oh my God, that was classic.
Oh,
I loved that.
It was so good. I tell that story all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
I love her.
perfect Kendall. That's
Yeah.
exactly what she
Yeah.
would have done.
Yeah.
Oblivious to the fact she's staring at my ugly glasses through her glasses.
I think she has contacts now.
Yeah, well, good.
Yeah.
Good, because
Yeah.
your glasses were ugly. No, I'm kidding.
It's fine. No, we love her.
Go ahead.
We never got to the nerding out about anything. We just went right in.
Oh, that happens a lot where I have it in my mind to say, but then we start things and in my brain, it doesn't fit in anywhere.
No, that's
Do you
fine.
have something though?
I started embroidery.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. It's really random.
It looks fun
yeah.
to me.
Like hand
Yeah.
embroidery.
On like a round thing or square
yeah,
thing.
like a little round thing. I am not cleaning sounds domestic, but I like the deep cleaning like stuff, not just like wear it and grin and be pretty.
Yeah.
But a couple things, trying to use my phone less. Mark and I really like to sit and watch shows together, but I probably have some form of like ADD where I need to like keep busy, so it like keeps my hands busy and I can focus.
Because I will stare at my phone for two reasons. Like I need to do that, and also it helps me from falling asleep.
Yeah,
I will fall asleep.
Yeah. Crocheting is really big now.
Yeah.
People like to do it. I have tried it once, and you have to count. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be hard.
I wanted to make a blanket, and I think I made a pot holder like this big, and said, "Nah."
It's a blanket for a Barbie.
Yeah, that was like, I'm pretty sure I was pregnant with Luke, and I wanted to crochet a blanket, and then nope, which is fine. Wasn't for me. And then kids and all that stuff. So now in this age where I have some time and hobby and all that stuff, and then I've had I should have a cool like knife story, like I got knifed or something. But I had a couple of hand surgeries, and I found that like my finger dexterity wasn't as great anymore. So sidebar of that is like hand strength and like finger dexterity, because it's really important for me at work.
Yeah,
putting IVs in and
I can imagine little tiny baby arms and legs. Yes, yeah.
All this stuff. So that has been like a added side bonus to it too. I'm not great, but I am better than I started.
Yeah.
And they have there's so many really cool little like starter packs out there that you can learn how to do all these things.
I have to do something because I was just on my phone yesterday betting on sports as we were watching Dexter. So
I don't some people like crocheting and knitting, and it's kind of, people use that as the same thing. Or like Abby somehow figured out how to finger knit. So she does know how to do it with a knitting needle, but she'll just be sitting there like,
I like that post you made about her doing a blanket.
Oh, the fleece blanket.
She just laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Basically looked like, I forget what you said, but she found out she didn't want to do it or something.
Yeah, like that was kind of on our winter break. Like she wanted to make a fleece blanket. I'm like, all right, I am, like I said, a person who likes to just hang out on the couch with my dog. So part of this like building community is also pushing myself. Mark pushes me to get out and about so much more, and I'm so thankful for that. Most of the time I'm like, I don't want to do that, but it ends up being great. Like traveling, going places, all stuff. My hard line is I just do not want to go to Dave and Buster's. It's his happy place. I do not want to go.
So you haven't been at all?
No, I've been.
Oh, you just don't like it.
It's too lights and noise, and
too much sensory overload.
Yeah, I can't.
I love Dave and Buster's.
Well, you and him can go together. Go get some Slurpees. Go to Dave and Buster's. Okay, so I have a sidebar about that. So I checking out at Target with Mark's Christmas gifts the kids picked out for him, and we see his mom in the other checkout line. So I like walk on over, and I was like, I got a Lego kit and candy. It's your son's gifts. And he was so happy. Got him the DeLorean Lego kit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Is it built?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not yet.
All
He's been sick, so it will be. That's a nice like January. It's cold out activity. So, but so
Abby's blanket.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. So yes, I'm gonna say yes to things because normally I only say yes at Disney. And we're gonna go and we're gonna do the things. And so even just picking out, there were so many options, and she picked it out, and it was a whole experience. And then we laid the blanket out. It's big, and she's like, we have to cut all of these things. And I'm like, yep, I'll make the dots for you. You go and cut. So I marked it out so that it was nice and even. And she did. Oh, I did most of the tying. I'm like, I'll help you, but you need to be doing this too. But she was like laying flat on the floor, and I think it was like, I think Abby figured out that making a blanket like this blanket isn't all that it's out to be.
Yeah.
And her like just face flat on the floor. But
My mom did a lot of knitting and crocheting. Like she could be watching TV, talking to people, just like doing like, and her hands just going. She used to make doilies, which is very impressive. I think my grandpa, her dad, had a couple like in frames. And she put them in frames because they look like they're nice. They look like art.
they're very intricate.
Yes, very much so. And I don't know. I'm looking around right now because I'm sure there's one somewhere, but she hadn't done it in a while. But growing up, they were everywhere because it was just what she did, and I don't think I ever asked her why she got into it or why she did it so much, but she really liked it.
Yeah.
And it looks fun. And I need to find something where I'm not staring at my phone so I'm not sleeping at that night. I need to find something. Crocheting I always liked crocheting. I like coloring.
Yeah.
I liked I like the adult coloring books that are real like intricate. I like those, but then I get mad when I mess up.
Oh no.
So
See,
that's
and that's why I kind of like embroidery because there's cross stitch and there's embroidery, and to me cross stitch is too specific. Where like I mess up all the time in this stuff. I'm like, oh, let's put another stitch over it. It'll be fine. Like
okay.
I don't actually know because I did cross stitch I think as a kid, but just looking at the patterns and stuff, I'm like, I feel like this is very specific. But it's kind of like, to me, it's like drawing with a pen versus painting. Like painting seems like more, but you can actually hide more.
Yeah.
Like I like painting more than I like drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the library does like a bring your own craft thing? Like, come hang out and do your craft. And I'm like, I should go. And then I'm like, it's probably,
Just a bunch of blue hairs.
yeah, it's probably a whole different generation. So it's okay.
You should go one night and just like pass by and look in to see what's happening. See like
Oh no, I'm just here for books. Yeah. But they have like a, they have so much, but they have like a coloring thing too. Like I don't know. But you're more on the like,
I want to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, something on the like artistic side.
I like cross stitching and what'd you say?
Embroidery.
Embroidery seems fun to me, but I want something to lay over it as a pattern, and I can copy that, so that way I make.
Yeah,
something,
that's what
right?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
That's what I want.
Freehand.
Yeah, that's what I want to see, and then so there's something that's showing me how to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I can deal with that.
Yeah. Well, and then like just be able to embellish, like I don't know, like you can put over clothes, like you can put a little
emblem of something.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not at that point yet. I'm still like just learning and following the patterns and da 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 da. But there's I don't know. There's so much available out there that I'm sure that I'm not a TikTok person, but I have been using TikTok to learn how to do certain stitches, and that's been super helpful.
Yeah.
But,
all that stuff, YouTube, everything. I thought of you, Megan, because over the break last week, we had time off, and Andrew and I reorganized, not totally, but probably say 80% of our storage in our basement.
Ooh, that's fun.
And we went from probably, I don't know, a dozen to 15 random boxes and bins into 8 of those big ones from Costco.
Yeah,
those
the black and
lid
yellow ones. Yeah.
And they have racks for them now. I didn't know that. So we bought 2 of those, and they're beautiful. Slide right in there. And there's about 3 inches of space at the top where I can actually get the 5th one on top. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. So we can use all 5, but it looks really nice. There's a lot of space.
Yeah. What are you going to do with your new space?
Andrea, at some point, we're not there yet. At some point, she wants to put a restroom and a shower and stuff in the basement.
Yeah.
But we're just not there yet because
That's big.
I have the stuff that's left is mostly my stuff, because what I do, and I've always done for whatever reason, I have a shelf, which it can be seen in old videos, podcast videos of a bunch of sports stuff. Bobbleheads, cups, different things, pennants, that kind of stuff. I take them out, put them there, but then I also keep the boxes. So I have boxes of boxes. And then when we moved, I put everything back in their box and put it all in. And then we came to the new house when we moved now 10 years ago. So there's in my basement for 10 years have been boxes of these things.
Yeah, I have a.
I don't know what to do. I can't throw them away. It's free. Like, what am I going to pack them in?
Were you moving?
I know we never plan to move ever again.
You can wrap them in bubble wrap.
I
tissue
know.
Paper,
I don't know what
t-shirts.
it is.
No,
I tell you what.
It's a thing.
What happened? And this feeds my need for these boxes. We got rid of our Nintendo Wii because when we were organizing, there was a bunch of video games and DVDs and movies, and I have a buddy who sells that stuff on eBay, and I just don't have the time for that. I told Andrew we could probably make $100 because the Wii is packed in its original box. Some of the controllers I still had the plastic in there, so I could put the controllers in the plastic. Like every paperwork, everything's in this box, and it's all like original. I'm like, here you go. I still have my Xbox 360 box.
Oh my god!
All this stuff.
Mark, don't listen. Yours are all gone. No, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it's all about what you value, right? To me, the space and the time that takes moving said boxes from place to place and storing them is not worth the extra $80 that would have brought. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like, it's all about like time and space and all that stuff. If you have the space to store it, great. If you don't, that's a problem.
So I should get rid of these boxes.
I encourage it, but I also understand, like, if you have the space and you don't mind spending the time to store them, or that like brain space to like, even just this conversation, like, I have these boxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're fine with that, that's great. Good for you. But it obviously becomes a problem when people don't have the space for holding on to things that really don't bring any value back in. I will say we have one of those black and yellow boxes or bins from Costco with DVD cases that I am forbidden of throwing away. All the DVDs are in like a because we don't watch DVDs anymore. They're all
in a book somewhere or something.
Yeah, it's like in a like CD booklet thing because everything's streaming. But I have not thrown those DVD cases away because I'm not supposed to, and that's okay because that's a boundary and I can respect that.
Sure.
But that's okay. Everybody's different.
My dad has a bunch of Blu-rays and DVDs, and he told me a couple weeks ago that he's actually trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
So, and we've never been we've never bought DVDs or anything, and it's just not what we did. But those boxes, I think part of it too is some of that stuff is my dad's, so he gave them to me. Like, here you go. Here's these things. I packed them up, and you can have them now. And I'm gonna do the same thing to Mateo. Like, here, you can have these things if you want to sell them. Cool. If not, whatever. Like, it's your things now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I should probably just get rid of them because, again, you're right. We plan to not move anywhere, so I don't know.
But it's whatever you want to do, man. It's whatever.
It's such a ridiculous thing that could be easily managed.
Right. Right. And Megan and I played that game a while ago of like, if your house was on fire, what would you grab when you leave? And I literally was like, my dog. Like, I mean, I just don't place a lot of value on like things.
Yeah.
And I don't think you do either, but like you wouldn't be running around grabbing boxes when your house is on fire.
Yeah.
But then it's like the next step is like, what would you be like sad about having to replace? You would not be sad about having to replace all those boxes.
You're right.
You would be sad about the things that are most important to you. And I imagine those boxes. So like sometimes playing that little game when you're like decluttering or whatever of like, if this was in my basement and my basement flooded and it got soggy, would I replace it or would I just throw it away and not think twice about it, kind of a thing? Yeah. Our basement has flooded a couple of times. The last time it flooded, it was my fault. I left the utility sink on.
Oh no!
With it plugged.
Next time, just put that bin of DVDs down, and I spilled them too, and they got off.
No, but because our basement has flooded before, most everything's in a plastic bin down there. So it was fine, but the basement floor got scrubbed and really clean. That was great. I was just like, I went down to like switch laundry over. I let the dog out at like, I don't know, 1 a.m. and there was like inches of water in the basement. I was just like, oh no. Oh no. But our basement has flooded before, not of our own accord of, I don't know, whatever was happening with water and stuff outside. Sure. So been there. This was the best because it was clean water and it was fine. But like, I did get to toss a few things our basement is not finished, and it's currently looks like athletic central because Abby's been doing some pitching stuff down there. Both kids have been doing some hitting stuff down there. Luke has a rowing machine down there now, and randomly uses some dumbbells for, I don't know, whatever he's doing. I don't know.
I dream of making that basement over at some point, much like this basement.
I mean,
right?
everybody. I feel like most people with a basement are like, oh, it could be great, but
when we first moved in, I had things everywhere, because that was how it was at my old house, because Mateo was a baby.
Yeah.
So I had things everywhere, and I started putting things up, and I go, I can't do this down here. I said, the kids are going to use this space, and I'm just going to be mad when my things get damaged. So I packed everything back away, and it's just in a bin waiting to be, literally, if you look around this basement, at my house, every inch of wall space was covered with sports memorabilia. I had all these things out, thumbtacks everywhere, and tape and all this stuff.
And then you took them all down?
I took everything down.
Wow.
I left, what did I leave up? I think I left, I think it's just the one wall with the shelf. And then I have random little things, my buddies play college sports, and I have some of their pictures and stuff up and some Perrysburg stuff. It's just one wall halfway up that I have. Everything else is blank, or they have a kid's dartboard, or, Barbie doll house and all this stuff, because I'm going to get mad at them for stuff that I put up. So at some point it'll be, like I said, my parents' basement, they got their couches, they got a big screen TV, they come down here and hang out. And
perfect. Midwest basement.
Very much so.
Yeah. TV, somewhere to sit, good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, my dad, right above us is the living room. That living room was only for watching TV. The other living room was for playing. So he's not a stickler for that, though. So if we go in there and the kids, around the holidays, our kids were messing around, whatever. But that's kind of what separates the two. It's almost like this is my mom's living room and this is my dad's living room.
Yeah.
But yeah, the basement is when my kids are over here with their cousins, they come down here and play pool or watch TV or watch a movie or whatever.
When you're a kid, basements are fun.
Oh, I love my grandparents' basement.
And it doesn't matter if it's just cement blocks.
That's
and
my
walls,
grandparents, yeah.
Because
in 50-year-old couches.
And this is the whole thing about value. You don't place the value in what it looks like. You place the value in the time that you spend there with the people that you like spending time with, right? It all comes back to those things that you really care about.
Yeah. I have a picture, it's floating around some cloud somewhere, but it's of me, my older brother, and my two younger sisters just sitting as adults, sitting on my grandparents' basement steps.
Oh, that's cool.
Because we spent, every time we were there, that we were just in the basement playing pool or playing their records. We would play this Sesame Street record or Kermit the Frog and just, hang out down there. They didn't even have a TV. We would just be down there messing around with all their junk and climbing on boxes and looking at stuff. My grandpa would yell at us every once in a while because we were getting into stuff. But
yeah,
because he had boxes of boxes, we were digging around. So yeah, it was fun though. It was a just like you said, it's not the things, it's the memories of us being there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when the whole decluttering stuff, some people think getting rid of the thing gets rid of the memory.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but everybody has a different journey on how much they believe that or want to. Some people just have the space to store things and they're happy with that, and that's great.
Well, now I was looking for a fifth thing I learned for my new podcast things I learned. And I think it'll be about my boxes. So
okay, great.
We'll wait and see. Well, I kept you here longer than normal, but
That's okay.
I appreciate you coming out here in my parents' cold basement.
That's
and
great.
Again, thank you for always listening to the podcast. Rachel did send me a text saying that my podcast was in her ears as you were grocery shopping. It does mean a lot. I had another friend talk. I think he texts me about every episode, and it's awesome because he gives me good feedback, or he's like, hey, this would be a good time to say this, and we talk about the episode and what I could have done or what he would have liked to hear, and it's cool to hear that because whether it stays community or it gets bigger, it's the people that are texting me or emailing me.
Well, and it can get bigger within the own community.
Oh yeah.
There's plenty more to outreach.
And I do have other plans. I want to start doing live things. So I have an idea for next football season of doing something like that.
Oh, that would be cool.
I just got YouTube Live on my phone, so I was thinking about doing the things I learned live, and then also putting it out like I normally would.
Oh yeah.
But doing it live if people watch it and they comment or make comments as I'm talking. So I don't know. There's other things I want to do, but you're right. It could stay small and big at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool. Being able to comment on stuff because. That's why I feel like I listen to the podcast and I'm like, oh, and then I have a thought about something that you're talking about or whatever. And that's partly why I love this podcast so much, is because you feel like you're part of the conversation because, yeah, I don't know how, you know what I mean? You just feel like you're a part of it even when you're just listening.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search the Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is thenerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.